Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast. It's Coach Des here, and I am here today with a special episode with Elmeisha Fahrner, and we actually meet again. So a little bit of a backstory. We were celebrating WO3. I have been talking about WO3 this month because it is International Women's Month, and this is when we like to celebrate, promote, partner, and support women-owned businesses. And Elmeisha last year, got the opportunity to come on the podcast show. And it was awesome. We recorded this incredible interview and had technical difficulties. So we couldn't produce the recording, and time had passed and our lives got busy. And I'm like, okay, it's WO3 again. Let's give this a go. And I actually think it's really cool because obviously a lot can happen over a year in business. And my goal with this episode is to talk about female entrepreneurship, given the spirit of this month, and really get into Elmeisha's story. So, since you didn't get to hear it before, I won't steal too much of her thunder, but she actually has this incredible online business for delicious treats that I'll let you talk about some of her specialties. But she started her business in Texas. So came from El Paso, Texas, and brought it to the place that is near and dear to my heart because it's where I'm from, which is California, the Bay Area. I live in Las Vegas now. I was just in the Bay Area this past weekend, but it is a booming metropolis for lots of different businesses and a lot of entrepreneurship. But there's ups and downs in business. And I think women-owned business, a Black-owned business, right? So there's last time when we got together, we talked about the different self-limiting beliefs that you go through, when you're doing something like this. So I just want to thank you for taking the time again to come on the show and share your story and talk about what you've been doing over the last year. But welcome. Thanks for being here. And I would love to start out, Elmeisha, with you, just the beginning of your story, from why did you decide to do this? And then what made you want to continue on your passion of baking?
Well, like I said last time, this was just one of those things where I graduated from school. I actually graduated with a computer science degree in engineering, and I was not happy in my job. My husband saw that I wasn't happy. I was working at the local community college in El Paso, and he was like, "Why don't you go to culinary school?" And of course, I was like, I'm too old to change my major. It's kind of crazy. But we went into culinary school and I fell in love with pastries. And then I graduated, and my chef Lugo, told me, "Hey, why don't you apply for this one job?" They were looking for chefs. They weren't looking for pastry chefs. And I kept telling him, I'm a pastry chef. What do you want me to do there? And he was like, "Well, just apply." And I went, and this is where my creativity started, because I love pastries, anything pastries. But this was the place where I learned how to think outside the box. It was a health food restaurant. So I literally graduated learning how to use butter, sugar, flour, and all the things that you shouldn't be eating. And it's like, okay. And they said we needed to be healthy. So I came up with and this is where I came up with a lot of my recipes for my vegan pastry creams, how to infuse them with teas and different flavors. And you're just like, oh my gosh, it was great. So of course, I got pregnant with my son while I was there. And I ended up quitting that job. While I was pregnant, my husband was kind of noticing that I was missing being in the kitchen because I stayed with my IT job at El Paso Community College. And he was like, "Why don't you just start going to the farmers markets?" And I was like, "Oh man, what?" And he's like, do it. And of course my husband pushes me, and I'm like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Like always, I give them a couple of samples of things that I make. They fell in love with my brownies, which I think I will want to bring back. I haven't done them in years. And I ended up selling there for a while. And then of course my husband gets a job to California. But my husband tells me, "Hey, think about this. California, you can become anything. You're a pastry chef. You can be a chocolatier. You can learn how to do cakes." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, this sounds great. This sounds great. Yes, yes, yes." So when we came to California, I literally gave up technical anything, nothing computer science, nothing anything. And I started trying to find a job in my industry, pastries. So I ended up working at a local cupcake shop, and I loved it. I truly did like making cupcakes, but of course, we didn't get a lot of cake decorating because I wanted to decorate cakes. So I was like, well, let me start a side hustle. And my husband said, yeah, bring back the old business, paper, rock, fork. And I said, okay, fine. So I got it licensed because everybody always tells you got to be licensed in California. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. So I started it, and I kept doing that. And I would do it on the side. I would work decorating cupcakes, cakes, getting to be creative, making sure that people around me, friends, family, everybody came to me for that. And I was enjoying it. Unfortunately, I had to leave that job and move closer because, being a mom, that comes first. My son was in daycare. I wanted to be closer to him. He was starting school. So I went to another job, which was Safeway, and I didn't get to touch a cake for 4 years. And it was it was very sad. I mean, the only time I actually got to do cakes was through my own business. So of course, when the pandemic hit and I was tired of being underappreciated and not being able to do exactly what I wanted to do. So I just left Safeway and I said, I'm going to jump off this cliff and do it. Cause my husband was like, you're good. You're great. Why are you staying there? You know that you want to do this, but you keep staying there and you're not happy. My husband always notices when I'm not happy. And I said, okay, I saved up enough money to try to do this. What's the worst that can happen? So I did it. And what keeps me going the most now, after being I think it's been over 2 years that I've been doing this full time, ups and downs, is usually my family support. They keep me going because there are days when I sit on the couch and I'm like, I made a big mistake, man. I don't think I should have done this because I had a job that had, the steady paycheck. I was able to do more. Sometimes people don't tell you that following your passion, you do work more than you do at another person's job. But what keeps me going is my husband and my son. They see that I'm happy. They say, you enjoy doing this. This is your passion. You get joy out of this. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. I do love doing what I do. So even days where it's slow and even days when there's self-doubt, I always have to remember that this is something that I love doing. And this is not forever. It's like a chapter in a book. There's short chapters, there's long chapters, there's good chapters, there's sad chapters, there's great epic chapters. And there's chapters that you read so fast that you're just like, oh man, I wish I could experience that again. This is what it is for me right now that keeps me going. Sometimes, like this past year, I was so busy that I didn't really get to enjoy what I did and what I learned. That when I finally got downtime, I was like, I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I made that. That's what I made. Oh my gosh, I'm getting great. And then sometimes I do get the low moments where I have to look in the mirror and be like, it's okay. You got this. Just find something else to keep you busy. This is not permanent. Mm. So mostly what keeps me going is my family, friends. I got to get a cup of faith from them and then swallowing that faith and telling myself, hey, keep going. Yeah. That's for around the corner. Ooh, around the corner.
I know. Yeah, no, but you're so right. I think that it's very easy to get in a rut when it is that tough week or that slow season or whatever it is, especially in an industry where there can be inconsistency, And so I wanted to go back to the name of the business, Paper Rock Fork. Yes. Where did that come from?
Paper Rock Fork I was in school and we have to do a project where you make your own bakery or any kind of business you want. And of course, I did a bakery. And one of my chefs used to work at a Canadian restaurant where they sold beer, where they played paper, rock, scissors with the bottle caps. And I thought that was just so neat and so fun. And I like puns. So I said, oh, wouldn't it be funny if a bakery was named Paper Rock Fork? And somebody's like, you should make that be your name. And I was like, nah, that's a silly name. And it ended up being my project name and everybody loved it. And then the students, when I graduated and I talked to them and I was like, I should start a business. I don't have a name. Use that name. And even though I was like, oh, but it's not really a great name. I said, it's not a great name. And everybody's like, it is. So with everybody's faith in me, it ended up being my great name. And then where the fork always wins was actually a customer came up with that. We were chit-chatting and I said, yeah, my business. And I was telling her about my name. She's like, oh, where the fork always wins. And I was like, you are
Line.
freaking
Amazing. Yes. It's beautiful.
Yes. And then she was just like, oh, and I was like, you don't realize how beautiful that is. And she just started laughing and I love her. She's still a regular customer and I love her for that because it made even though it's not a name that I think I would have chose, it's like, oh, when she added that line, I was like, oh, that's cute. I love it.
Well, and I think it is the epitome and the reflection of truly that homegrown business where everything has a meaning. It's special. It came from somewhere. It's a personal story and it's a conversation starter. How did you get your name? And, right when you go to the website, so anybody who's listening, if you go to paperrockfork.com, you'll see that where the fork always wins, right? And it is a really cute tagline. So props to your customer who's adding to your brand recognition and everything like that. You've been doing this now, like you said, steadily on your own for the past 2 years. You talked about what keeps you going, which is amazing because I think for anybody who wants to start something, eventually they have to ask the question, why do I keep doing this? What's the thing that makes you wake up in the morning and keeps going? What about the challenges of the business? So there's people listening, they might be like at different stages of their entrepreneurial journey, especially if it's a woman and there's all kinds of self-limiting belief stories they're telling themselves. What are some of the challenges you've faced and how have you overcome them?
My biggest challenge to begin with was organizing myself and setting myself on a personal schedule. I still challenge with it. I still have a hard time because I love my family and I try to spend as much time with my family. But sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I sometimes get 20 cakes and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do all these cakes. And my family, all they see is my back because I'm decorating cakes, I'm baking cakes. And I have to realize that, wait a minute, sometimes I need to stop. But the biggest challenges along the way really is, for me, was last year was self-doubt big time and things that I had to really work on. This year, I was lucky to be with a mentor who told me that you need to get over that. You need to understand that you are talented. You can do any of these things that you want to set yourself to do and jump and just take that leap. And he was like, what's the worst that can happen? You might have to, you do it for a couple of months, you realize it doesn't work for you, and then just change it. And I was like, that's correct. That's very correct. Another challenge when you start a business, because when you first start, you want to get as many customers as you want to do as much as you want. You're like, oh, yes, yes, yes. But you have to set your boundaries. Literally set your boundaries. You have to give yourself a list, sit down and write this list, because there were so many times where I was tired to the point where I was beyond exhaustion because I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do this. No, set a time for when you're not going to take orders anymore. How many orders are you going to do? Like now, yeah, I can do 20 cakes, not a problem. Before, if I'd done 20 cakes, I'd have probably would have just lied down and died. But it's just because you have to set boundaries for yourself and make them realistic. Don't sit there and say, oh, well, I think I can do this much. And that's not true. I do understand that you have to push yourself every now and then, because my husband will tell you there were times where I said, you know what, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to say yes to it. And I accomplished it and I learned from it. But always set your boundaries with your customers, how many orders, what you're going to do. Don't feel that you have to do everything under the sun. Everybody likes fondant covered cakes. I don't do fondant covered cakes. That causes so much anxiety and so much trouble with me. I'm not going to do it. And if you really want a fondant cake, I have somebody in my book, and I'll say, this person does great fondant covered cakes. I'm not the one. So you set your boundaries, and it's not a bad thing. Don't ever feel bad saying no. Saying no can keep you sane. keep you mentally okay and give you some rest. Because I learned that the hard way, saying yes to everybody, saying yes to the box of cupcakes that had 12 different flavors, when in your mind you're like, why did I say that? Don't do that. You end up killing yourself later, and then you end up wasting more money, and then your time and your family, because your family's there for you, and then you're frustrated with your family because you're frustrated with this. That's that don't do that. And I mean, there's so many things I'm still learning. I'm I'm learning how to better take care of my books. It's a progress I've been learning every year, and now I've gotten it down to the point where I'm good. I'm not excellent, but I'm getting better. And
Yeah.
don't ever put yourself down because you didn't get something right. I've made mistakes on some cake orders. I'm lucky that they haven't been ridiculously big, but and this is a people pleasing business, which is the worst. So
Yeah.
when a customer calls you and says, I didn't like that, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to, don't, don't. I mean, the first time it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt bad, but you'll get better and you'll learn, okay, sometimes I make mistakes. And then you'll learn from what you need to detail your orders with. I have a playlist where a customer, I ask them exactly what they need. And then I go back to that playlist and I tell them how much it's going to cost. And it's just, you have to organize yourself. If I could go back in time and tell myself what to do, organize, 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 schedule, schedule, schedule. It will keep you rested, take better care of yourself. You'll spend more time with your family, and it's just your business overall and yourself will do better with it. That's the biggest.
Yeah, that is huge. I'm glad you talk about boundaries. It's difficult, especially for anybody that is doing something new for the first time, because you want to be everything to everyone, and that's not possible.
It is. Yes.
Single thing, right? When you know your lane and you stay in it, usually the outcomes are better and the quality of what you're doing is also better.
Exactly. And I even tell people all the time, like, I do try and do new things. I'm not saying that I sit in this little lane all the time and like, oh no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But don't force yourself to do something you're not comfortable doing just to please a customer. I had a customer ask me to do a tennis shoe cake, and I don't like doing fondant covered cakes. I mean, the cake came out wonderful, but there was so much anxiety with it. I literally told my husband, I for sure know this is not me. This is not me. The cake came out wonderful. The customer was happy and was like, oh, I'm going to come back. No, don't come back to me for this again.
Yeah. Yeah. And then right? Because the hope is that you're having fun with the process versus being more stressed out by
Yeah.
it, right? If you have a measuring stick of what a great project looks like, then there's always hiccups, but you don't want the whole thing to feel like it's a monumental feat.
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
Another thing, we were talking earlier about like your menu, and
Yes.
you've made some different choices to make changes and reduce it. And we were talking about feedback. When you're in a business where you have a product, right? Like, that's a lot of different types of businesses. Today, people are opening Etsy shops. They're doing e-commerce. They want them to have online presence and promoting their products on their Instagram or YouTube channels or whatever it is. How important is feedback from your customers when you're making adjustments to your product?
I love feedback. I really do. Some feedback you have to understand I can't always accommodate, and you have to understand that as well. Like, some people will complain that certain things are like, oh well, it's too sweet, or it's not sweet enough. And then you have to, and that's again setting your boundaries. You have to be like, are you willing to change your complete recipe for one person's response? And but I do love feedback. I enjoy feedback. Most of my customers have given me like ideas for recipes. Like, one couple, one was from Australia, one was from Britain, and they wanted to do a tea time type of wedding cake, like wedding party. So they came up with chocolate and orange cupcakes and a London fog cupcake. And it wasn't even on my recipe. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can totally do that. I ended up bringing it up to a couple pop-ups, and I had a lot of people really enjoy them. But then for my regular customers, they were kind of like, no, that's not what we're looking for. So it's the feedback that I got from it is it's good for a pop-up event because you're not giving a whole cake in that size and people can taste it, versus a birthday party, which most people stick with, cookies and cream, vanilla, chocolate, those flavors. So it's not that it's not always a bad thing, like, oh, well, your cake is horrible or your cake is great, but it's also a feedback letting you know what works good in what environment and what works good in another environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I want to ask you about marketing. So these days, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll go on social media and our phones are terrifying because it, knows our algorithms and knows what we like. And I'll see something in my feed of something I'm interested in, whether it's a beauty product or it could be food related. And then it's on Instagram, and then you click over something else and it's there on Facebook, or it could be on TikTok. And then you find out the person has a YouTube channel, and like you go down this rabbit hole, right?
Yes.
What has been your experience with figuring out the whole game of like marketing and promoting what it is that you do?
Me, I'm not great with like Instagram, TikTok, or any of those things. So I've started on the lower level of marketing. Like, this is my first year. I sponsored a baseball team. So they have my business logo on the back of their uniform. I do a lot of marketing, like locally. Like I do I do a lot of charity cakes for Oakland, San Leandro, Hayward, and I give these cakes away, and I find out that does more for me than sitting here playing with the algorithm on Instagram or TikTok, because I'm still trying to figure it out. And I feel like I'm not creative enough. Like, I see how some people are just, because I get sucked into that hole, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I was this creative. I wish I could come up with this beautiful idea. But I'm not that maybe I can't say I'm not that creative. I'm just not there yet. So what I find that works for me right now is the non-social. Well, I don't say non-social because I do a light social media marketing, but I noticed that what really works for me is word of mouth, offering charity events. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of my son's school always has little pop-ups, and I go there. I try to do as many local pop-ups, or try to collaborate with local restaurants or venue, anything that will let me like do a class or like have a tasting. Like if they say, oh, we have a wine, you want to go? Yeah, I'll bring something for you guys and you guys can like taste it with this. To me, that seems to bring me more business than actually sitting here playing around with my phone, doing TikTok and Instagram. Because I think I have to be more steady with it. And I've told my husband that, and I've been working on that, and I'm trying to get myself on a schedule once again, scheduling myself to like sit there and say, okay, this is what we're going to do for Easter, and this is what we're going to put on the page, and let's see if people like it. But most of my stuff comes from word of mouth. Even a golf course. I did some cake pops that look like golf balls at a golf course. And every year I'm getting like 2 or 3 orders from this golf course because somebody saw these golf ball cake pops and they're like, hey, I really want this for this event. So it seems to me that word of mouth locally has worked wonders for me. Wow. But if I decide to start selling, like, shipping, I think I'd have to get on Instagram and things like that.
Yeah. But I love that you have the honesty around what works for you. And I think everyone has to go through that experience for themselves. For some people, it might be everything on social media. But I think the element that you're talking about, especially if there's anyone who has a local business, right, is the importance of the human connection.
Yes. Yes.
people see you're a real human being and you have a face and you have a personality. And a lot of times that's what sells.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you as a brand of like, oh, well, yeah, I'll keep trying your stuff, but I just really like you. I would love to just support you. You're just so nice and you're an awesome person. And then people realize your talent and they actually really enjoy your products, right? So they want to buy your cake pops or your cupcakes or your cakes. And there is something to be said for that organic, authentic connection that you're making, and that goes very quickly too, the whole word of mouth thing, because you get one party or one thing where it's like, where did you get that cake?
Yeah.
And next thing the phone calls start coming in.
And I tell that, I tell that to a lot of people a lot of the times. Because even people, like, they'll sit and come to my booth and I'll do a pop-up and I'll have people sit there and chit chat with me and they're like, oh, I haven't bought anything. I'm like, oh, it's fine. I love talking to you, and the people around you get to learn about me because they're overhearing, and that's fine. You actually get a conversation going, and people start asking, and then people wonder and they want to know what this is and they want to know what that is. And they want to see what it tastes like, and they order and they buy, and you get my card. And I say, if you're going to sit here and talk to me, take my card and pass it on. Let people know, that's just my rules always. If you're going to sit here and chit chat with me, you got to work a little bit, take my card and pass it on to somebody else. And a lot of people, you'll be surprised. One lady was like, oh, somebody said they met you at a pop-up. You were a great personality, and I got your card from them. And I'm like, wow, that actually works.
Yeah, but there is, I think part of it is about confidence and putting yourself out there. And the more at bats you have, the more confidence you gain, with each interaction and experience. And a lot of times you do learn. I have this belief that we tend to learn more when things don't go the way we want them to.
That's so true.
Even though we always want them to go the way we want them to.
That is so true. I've learned more from sitting at a pop-up and only selling 2 things than I do when I sell out. Because when you sell out, you're like, oh, wait, I don't have to learn anything. There's nothing new I gotta learn. Everybody loves me. And then when you sit there, you're like, man, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Was I not in the right spot? Was I not talking to people? Did people walk by and I didn't say hello to them? What did I do wrong? And then you start really fixing. Like I tell it to my husband all the time. I said, the reason why I know how my cakes don't know how to fall is because I had a cake fall one time. And thank God it fell when I was in the house doing it. And I said, now I know what not to do. Let's redo this and do it right the second time. And I learned more from making mistakes than I've ever done from like being right the first time. Mm-hmm. And I even had a cupcake party and the lady was like, I love your cupcakes. I've never had them this. I said, do you realize that is like 3 years of work, just changing and getting feedback and looking at other people, what they do, talking to other cake artists. That even if somebody says, oh, this is my recipe and this is what I do, that doesn't mean I'm going to follow your recipe and I'm going to do what you do. Yeah. I might say, it works for you, but I'm going to tweak this. And I like to tweak it for my recipe. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You learn, like you said, you learn so much better from a failure than from a victory.
Yeah. And we tend to have more of those along the way. I think when we see things, especially how commercialized things are, we see all the glory.
Yes.
Everything in between. Like when you're watching sports, as an example, any star player will say, oh, how many times I've lost. It's just that you see someone at their best. And so that's what you remember, but you don't realize what it took to get to that spot. One of the things that you mentioned was having a mentor. And so how that has been an important part of your journey. What has that meant to you? And what would you say to people about what mentorship could be in their business journey?
I really appreciate my mentor. My mentor is absolutely awesome. I get it. I got my mentor through a free program here in California, and they just kind of like put you with somebody who has had the same kind of experience within your industry. And I love him because of the fact that he tells me like it is always, like I had a great idea. And then I'm like, but he tells me you need to stop that. It's not cute. You think you're being cute, but you're not. You can do this. And he's like, that's the reason why last year he said, you need to work on your confidence. He says, your problem is not that you can't do the job. Your problem is that you don't have confidence in yourself. Mm-hmm. And he pushes me on that. And then he also gives me guidelines on what I need to do. Like, you come up with an idea, you don't know all the blueprint for this idea. In your mind, it's just, you see the finished product. Like, even with me starting my business, like, oh, I'm just sell cakes and I'm going to be awesome. And all you see is people buying your cakes and loving you forever. Mm-hmm. But then he'll tell you, okay, did you cost this out? How much is it going to cost to do this? How much time is it going to take you to do this? How much do you want to pay yourself in the end? How much is your overhead? And I was just, what? So it helps out a lot. And I think that a lot of people, if you can start your business, no matter what industry you are in, see if you can find a free program for a mentor. Or even if you can find somebody who's willing to sit down with you and have lunch and say, hey, this is what helped me. That helps you out more than you know. I've made a ton of mistakes until I got into this mentorship. I mean, even with the whole making boundaries, the first meeting, he was like, no, you need to set boundaries. You need to make business hours. You got people calling you all time of the days and you picking up your phone. That doesn't work. I said, okay. And he's like, trust me, it's going to work. So when people call you before that time, you say no. And then you tell people, this is when I answer emails. This is when I do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So he put me on the straight and narrow. And he also helps me collaborate with people. Like, even with my ideas, I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. It sounds like a great idea, but I'm not here locally. So I don't know a lot of local people. Oh, why don't you try this place? Try that place. This spot sounds great for that idea. This is great. Why don't you do this? This is a great place for packaging. A mentor is kind of like I would always tell people with culinary school. Culinary school was the easy way of learning how to bake, and being a home baker and testing and trying and failing is the hard way. So getting a mentor is like your little shortcut. So you don't have to make all those mistakes and waste all that money and time. But you're still gonna. I mean, he even tells me whenever you start a new project, yes, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna waste money. You're gonna waste time. But with their help, you don't waste as much. I'll put it that way. It's like that that helps you out, so you don't have to learn on your own. Because I mean, there's been so many things that I kind of had to learn on my own, and it was hours of, even my packaging, hours of looking, what's the best packaging, where I'm going to find my ingredients. There's got to be other places and this and that, where I'm going to find this. I want to do that. I can't find it. Your mentor can tell you and help you. And if your mentor can't help you with it, your mentor will find somebody to help you. Yeah. Or at least get into a free program where they train you for that. There's a lot of, he trains me to get grants. So I know how to fill out grant paperwork. So I'm able to at least apply for grants. I might not always get one, but it's good to know that skill so you can get a grant. So you don't always have to use all your money. Hey.
Other people's money. Yeah.
Yes. Other people's money. I love working on other people's money.
Right? But I think the creative part of doing business is where we get hung up, because you're always thinking of the traditional things, and not recognizing maybe the other avenues that are available, because there are, obviously loans are there, but there are grants, and that's free money, right? You don't have to pay those back. Those are given to businesses because they meet a certain set of criteria, or maybe you have to tell your story and they have to get excited about your story to want to basically make an investment in your business. But I appreciate the learning about the mentorship piece and how it helps you play a longer game.
Yes.
Because I think it's easy to have that honeymoon phase.
Yes.
And then, after month 6, 7, 8, 9, you're like, this is hard.
Yes.
How do you keep going?
I tell people, I'm no longer the new kid. I'm not that new fashion trend anymore. It's like when I first came out, I was like, oh, this is easy. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so good at this. Now I'm going on year 3. People are kind of like, hey, what you got new? And I'm like, okay. all right, I gotta up my game. So the honeymoon phase has really faded out for me.
Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of new or maybe interesting or different, as you do think about the year ahead, I mean, we're at the beginning of the year still. We're just finishing the first, I guess you could say, quarter of the year.
Yeah.
We're entering spring, so it is going to be a new season here. Spring and then summer, always comes upon us quickly. What are you looking forward to this year in terms of your business and what you have planned?
This year, I'm really looking forward into making the big step of like having someone work for me. I really want to do that. Every year I get closer and closer to it, but every time I get very nervous because you have to make sure that you can pay that person and you have to make sure you have a steady something. But this year I really would love to have an employee or at least have some way to make a steady stream. I I love the idea of having someone working with me, and I guess maybe learning from me or me learning from them because there's always a lot to learn. And actually making a bigger splash with, paper rock fork. I would love to be able to, because if I can hire someone to work for me, then maybe I can also start shipping out so that my parents in Atlanta can actually buy my stuff.
Right? They're like, oh, okay, yeah, you talk about all this stuff, but then we have to wait to go see you to get any of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I could see the excitement of that collaboration and partnership, and also just the idea generation, the creativity, that extra energy that you have. So when you're sort of low on fuel, then they can fill up the gas tank a little bit and right?
Yes, because like I tell everybody all the time, like I'll go, my husband and my son hear it all the time. I said, I need a cup of energy. You got to tell me something. What can I do? And my son's always like, oh, you're awesome. Come on, mom, I wash dishes. And I'm like, okay, okay. So it's like I need a cup of faith or a cup of energy from somebody because it's rough some days. And I mean, it's just I tell my husband it would be nice to bounce ideas off of somebody else or even having somebody give me ideas. I mean, it it's hard sometimes you sit around and you're like, what can I come up with new? And you're blank. And then if it wasn't for some of my creative customers, I probably would never come up with ideas. I have customers who come up with some of the craziest ideas or some of the most awesome ideas. And then I'm like, you know what? That sounds awesome. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try.
Like, okay.
Yes.
Well,
So
it's interesting because then when your creative juices get flowing, things can happen. Like maybe there's a contest where now your customers like submit an idea for a certain month, or like at Halloween time, or whatever it is, and then maybe they get something out of it. So there's some creative things I think that you can do during seasons where that audience participation can kind of come into the mix. So I really like that. But speaking of your product, so there's people, especially those who might be passing through California or they might be in the Bay Area. They check out Paper Rock Fork. What are some of the specialty and popular things that you create that you would highly suggest people try?
well, if you're in the Bay Area and you really want to try something delicious, I'm well known for my bourbon pecan pie. It is one of the top sellers of everything that I make, even all year round. I usually just make it during Thanksgiving, and a couple of customers are kind of like, "Hey, can you make me one?" I'm like, "Yes, yes, definitely. Just call and let me know." So that's one of my number one sellers, and I'm thinking about adding it onto the menu permanently. And then some people love my chocolate chip cookie. I call it a deep dish chocolate chip cookie. It's about maybe an inch thick, and I roll it in chocolate chips and then I bake it off. People love the chocolate chip cookie, even though I do snickerdoodle, I do cookie monster, I do all kind of different cookies, but chocolate chip and M&M always sell. I do a one cake that's actually seems to be making a comeback is my guava coconut. I've been having a lot of people picking up the guava coconut this year, which I was kind of surprised too. I love guava coconut. I love the filling, the guava. Oh my gosh. I always tell my husband I need to sell it in jars and tell people just put it on vanilla ice cream with a little bit of toasted walnuts. Oh my gosh, I love it. So I usually make it for myself. And then if a customer wants a guava coconut cake, I'll make them guava coconut cake. So and then and then one thing I really would love people to enjoy and want them to like is I'm wanting to do something with caramel because I love caramel. Caramel is one of my favorite things to eat. So I was thinking of starting to try to come up with a caramel cake with chocolate or vanilla for people who like caramel. I have a sweet tooth. And my biggest thing right now, which is probably the worst, is red velvet with cookies and cream frosting. That's like my thing right now. I have customers asking for it. So I'm gonna probably put it on the menu, but it's like one of my favorites. And that with funfetti too, cookies and cream with funfetti or strawberry buttercream. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Those are like my little creations at home with leftover frosting.
Everybody listening is just like, okay, I'm going to need something sweet after this. Yeah. I mean, you had me since the very beginning when you first started with the bourbon pecan, but then you got to the guava coconut, and I was like,
Oh,
yeah.
love
I
guava.
come from a family of islanders, so they're very, connected with these different tropical vibes, and yeah, that would be the thing that they would be like.
Oh, I had a customer come up with this one that was really good, a pineapple lemon cake. And I didn't think it was going to be good. And I was like, ew, are you sure? So I made I made their cake and I made a small little portion for myself.
Together. It was
Oh
all
my gosh. I was like, oh, because I make my lemon curd and I do like the pineapple filling and I mixed. Oh,
my
that
gosh.
was so good. Like I tell you, my customers give me ideas and I'm just like, oh, that was good.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. That's oh yeah. I'm like, I have kickboxing class today, and I'm like, maybe I can earn myself like something. That's because everything sounds amazing that you just said. I love it. That's so awesome. So I was curious. I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I wanted to get your insights because I know that friends that are in the food industry that are different. I have friends that are chefs that that do different kinds of cuisines, and it has been popular for them to like start a YouTube channel and share their stuff, like either how they make it, their recipes, or that sort of stuff. Is that something that you would want to start sharing by video, the kinds of things that you do in your baking process?
I wouldn't mind doing that. It's I always like even now I always feel awkward being in front of a camera and I get kind of goofy because I'm a geek at heart. So I get
Probably
really
people probably love that about you.
they probably will. I'm a Nintendo I'm a Nickelodeon kid, so everything like Nickelodeon all that kind of stuff. So I'm really that kind of geek with the X-Men. My son loves me because I'm the big geek for everything. So of course, if I ever did a video, a YouTube like that, I think they would have to hear me make all these corny jokes like I do all the time, and I probably would get overly animated. And I hope people don't take that the wrong way. So I would love to do that, but like I told my husband, he thinks I should just do it, but I'm nervous about what would people think with me and my absolute geekiness because I mean I get absolutely excited about this. I mean, I did one time do a charity event where I donated my time to teach women how to bake something with no sugar, no refined sugar, and all that kind of things. But it was whatever money I got. I didn't receive any money whatsoever, but the money would go to women in other countries, entrepreneurs, and help them start their businesses. So I was like, great, I'm going to do this. And of course, mine went 30 minutes over time and nobody told me anything. And I kept saying, let me know my time. Let me know my time because I'm going to chit chat. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to ask you guys questions. And when she said, oh, well, we just need to end this. You've been 30 minutes over. I said, oh, she's like, but we loved every moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys got to keep me on this. And The same thing with my cupcake class. So I want to do something like that, but I think I need to perfect myself to be able to like, because they're only like maybe 20 minutes long, those videos. And I don't think anybody wants to hear me gaggle and laugh about how to make a cupcake and pipe it and put sprinkles on it for like 20 minutes.
You'd
And
be
then,
surprised what people like. Well, they go to YouTube for everything
oh,
and,
yeah.
and watch like people play video games for like
Oh,
4 hours. So I mean,
I'm one of the YouTubers. I love following, and I tell people all the time whenever, like even my cupcaking decorating class, I said I saw somebody on YouTube do this. It was absolutely gorgeous the way they did it. So let's see how good we're gonna do today. I always have fun doing that. I said I think those people are absolutely wonderful what they do on YouTube. I enjoy it. I sit there and I enjoy watching them cook. I enjoy watching them bake. I enjoy watching them tell me stories. YouTube is awesome, but the videos I watch, these people seem to be a lot more professional than me.
I think that's what's cool. So, if you do think about it and you do enter the space, you have unique characteristics, and that's what makes it special, right? Is because you are differentiated, you have your unique twist on things. And I think people love the nerding out. I mean, if there are people who go on there and watch kids unwrap presents, I'm pretty sure they would be happy to actually learn a skill, and there's a lot of people that, I'd probably throw myself in that category where in your head, you think you're excellent and then find out that you're actually not as excellent as you thought you were on something. So better to learn from someone who knows, and then you can get better in your, I remember during the pandemic, everybody thought they were like a nail artist and a hairstylist and a baker. And then, they realized where their skills fell universe, and that's okay.
Exactly. Like I told everybody was making sourdough, and I was the one who was just bring me the loaf. I know that I like making bread, but I'm not that good the way y'all was. It was, my
Like,
neighbor. Yes.
not today, not me. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not. So, Elmeisha, what would you say? What's a piece of advice that you would give to someone who is starting out and maybe like you when you first started has this feeling of self-limiting beliefs to follow their dreams?
The first thing I would tell someone who has this self-doubt of following their dreams is the same question I asked myself, which was, are you happy where you're at? Do you want to stay where you're at, or do you want to at least try? I answered myself saying, I'm not happy where I'm at. And even if me trying is a failure, I'm going to be happier trying to fail than not try at all. And that was what made me do it. It was kind of like I could be stuck in this awful place that's not making me happy, or I can follow my dreams and keep going. And like I tell, and what keeps me, and I know people are like, well, oh, when you take that step, it's hard to keep going. What keeps you going is this. Just because you see Amazon being the way it is, it started in somebody's garage. And I bet you he probably failed 20 or 100 times on making this successful business. We just see what the millions and billions of dollars that they're earning now. That doesn't mean just because you are not starting off there does not mean that you're not going to get there. There are going to be times where I have to tell myself too, even in the beginning, where I was sitting there and I didn't have any orders because nobody knew I existed. I'm doing word of mouth. Nobody knows I existed. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm scared. And I would tell myself, things like, don't worry. People always worry about money. Money comes, money goes. Money's always going to come. There's always a way money's going to come to you if you follow your dreams. I mean, it comes to you. There's somehow, some way, money's going to come to you. People are going to come to you. It comes to you. It might not be good that moment, but follow your dreams and don't think of it as forever. It's just a moment. That's what I would tell myself too in the beginning, because I was like, oh my gosh. But what if, and that's the one thing my mentor says, what if that's no such thing? What if it's just a moment? What if it's a beautiful thing at the end of the rainbow? What if you go around that corner? What if you stop right at that corner and you could have went around that corner and the best thing could have been happening and you could have followed your dream. Your dream could have been everything you wanted, could have helped others, helped yourself, made you happy, made the world happy. Boom. But you decided, no, it's not worth it anymore. And you're back in that miserable place you were before. But I tell everybody starting, think about it. Is it worth sitting where you are now? Or is it better to at least try and fail? And while you keep going and it gets hard and it gets sticky and it gets awful and it gets ugly and it gets sad, remember, that is just a moment. That is just a moment in this big thing of life. You will get out of that moment. Money comes, customers come. Customers will always come. Whenever you follow your passion, your dream, what you need somehow finds you. I needed a mentor and somehow it found me. I was like sitting there talking to a friend said, hey, you should check out this mentor group. And I was like, oh, what you need will find you. I mean, I know that sounds very new agey, but it's the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth.
To be real, I know this is, a little dreamy and everything, but I think you are spot on. And, I believe in the law of attraction. I believe what you put out, you get back that energy, right? You can emanate bad juju and bad energy, or you can emanate positivity and joy and you radiate that. And then it comes back to you. I do think tenfold. So, there's something to be said for manifestation and how you attract the things that you want in your life. And you are what you believe.
Yes. And that's a big thing, because I tell my husband my husband knows I try to keep myself a little humble, but sometimes I do my I did that dance, because I am that. Mm-hmm. So, but when the more confident I got, the more I noticed business was doing better for me. None of this, oh, well, I don't know. No. Throw her outside the door. She don't need to come through that door. let
her and kick her out. Nobody invited you.
Why'd you invite her? Nobody likes her at this party.
Buzzkill. Don't have her enter the party. Exactly. But everybody has that person, that guest that shows up that was uninvited, and you have to learn how to dismiss them. That's exactly right.
And I tell people it's not easy. It's not, because I still have a lot of self-doubt. Oh my gosh, I have so much self-doubt. But I literally have to sometimes look in the mirror, or sometimes I'll be like, oh, all these negative things come in my head. And I'm like, wait a minute. That is not true. And I don't care if I'm standing in the living room, in the kitchen, I will stop and I will sit there and say something good about myself. Like, you are working hard. You are doing wonderful. You have people telling you how great you are. You need to keep going. Don't let that come in your head. Don't let it stay. Don't let it sit. I know I'm making it sound easy, but I know it is not easy. It is one of the hardest things that I'm working on, and my mentor is working on it with me. And he himself has noticed that the more confident you've gotten, the more I see you're kind of like, you know what? I want to try something else. I want to try this. I think I can stand in front of people now. I think I can do this. I think I can do that. And that's where it comes from, not listening to that negativity. And like he always tells me, what's the worst that can happen? You try it out for a little while, it doesn't work for you. Then you're like, you know what? This isn't for me. Let me turn around and go another game plan. Life is not, everything is like that. Even when you go grocery shopping for dinner and you're like, oh man, I forgot this. Well, I got this and this in my cart. I'm going to make this instead for dinner. That is how running your business is. If it doesn't work for you and it doesn't fit your agenda, or it causes too much stress for you, just take it out and make your own recipe and make that recipe work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See it?
No, it's such sage advice, and I really appreciate that. So, Elmeisha, how can people find you?
Oh, okay. You can find me if you're in Castro Valley. Say hi, hey, and you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm still on Facebook, And TikTok, I do a couple cute videos on TikTok, but they're not as cute as everybody else's. And I also have my own website, and they're all underneath my name of Paper Rock Fork, and then my website is paperrockfork.com. But you can find me on those platforms right now. If there's any other new ones and I can figure it out, I'll let you know.
All right. Platform that comes out, just yeah. But I think that those are the popular ones, right?
Those are the very popular ones. Yeah.
Box and everything. Yeah, hopefully they don't go too fast, because you figure out one and then all of a sudden now you got to figure out something else. So
always.
It's just too much. But this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for your energy, for your time, for your advice. I think it's going to help so many people think about their entrepreneurship, and also just give them that courage to continue.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think anybody can follow their dream. Personally, I think everyone should be able to at least try to follow their dream. I mean, I hear so many people in my lifetime who are like, oh, I could have been, or what ifs. I don't like that what ifs. Try. I mean, I believe in everybody who does it. So at least you got me backing you up. I'm your little cheerleader. Just, if I could, I'll pass you a cupcake saying you can do it.
All you need is that cupcake in the back of your head to push you to back here. And probably it's guava coconut flavor, by the way.
Oh, yes. Guava coconut. As soon as I get on, I'm already like, guava coconut. Why did I bring that one up? I love it.
I know it. Well, I am excited about the release of this episode. Support for WO3, uplifting women and women-owned businesses. I'm a big fan and proponent and advocate and co-conspirator for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I personally also like supporting Black-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and and I encourage people to do what you find in your heart, and find local businesses in your area. So in celebration of this month and WO3, I would say find your local women-owned business that you want to support. It could be through just learning about them and spreading the word. The same way that you were saying, hey, here's this card, let people know about the business. It could be through buying a product if you're in the area and you want to order something like a cake, or from a business that you want to promote, put that out there, share it on social media. A lot of easy ways to do that. But the more we come together in community and support of one another, the more that we are bringing that kind of energy of positivity and harmony and unity into the world around us, which I think is so important. So thank you again for coming on the show. It was amazing to have you.
Thank you. Oh.